Welcome to my channel. Click on that little red button to subscribe to my channel and click on that little bell notification icon to be notified. Hiring managers are Reddit. What's your favorite? They were perfect until we googled them story. Everything looked good on her resume. She was very professional and enthusiastic in her interview and just had that thing. The self-starter attitude that made you feel like this girl is going to get crap done. Well, ran a background check and literally found nothing. She was actually not licensed in her field like she claimed, and she had about a dozen prizes for various white-collar crimes, and none of her work history or reference checked out. I guess she was just hoping that her charisma would win us over and that we wouldn't bother checking up on her. You'd be surprised how many employees don't. It's true. I know a guy, not a friend, just worked with him, who had 5 counts of sexual harassment on his file at one job, while was literally escorted off the premises for sexual harassment at the next, etc. etc. He's been fired for sexual harassment multiple times, but still finds work without issue. He's never had more than weeks of unemployment between each firing. No employer with a lawyer would comment to one another. Background check company. No way. If he didn't get any actual criminal conviction, there's no way it would come up. At the worst, an employer might say he's ineligible for rehire. Maybe. Most places will just confirm that he worked there, his title, and possibly dates of employment. I was a restaurant manager and the owner hired this guy as a chef without doing basic research, which he did a few times. Anyways, the guy said he had won several awards and worked with celebrities, etc. The guy was a total douche to everyone on staff. I decided to Google him. First hit is a mugshot from a drug arrest. Then more articles, one about where he lied about getting a James Beard award from a previous restaurant he worked at. A comment about him owing $25,000 or something to his former boss. The only positive review was from 1990. I came in after the week to show this to his boss when I learned he was fired from the night before for exposing himself to one of the waitresses. It must have so many crazy pre-internet, you pretty much have to claim anything in your resume. If a company was considering a hire for a high-paid, high-trust position, they could always have a private investigator look up the info for the candidate. It would still take longer than Google, etc., but it was still doable to a certain extent. The GOAT. Hiring private tutors to work with middle school students. Had a great conversation with a girl. She stressed how much she wants to be a role model for young girls. Basically exactly what we were looking for. Then I googled her and the first picture on Facebook is her doing a line. Who the heck posts themselves doing a line on Facebook and keeps it public? Cocaine apart, she doesn't sound bright enough to private tutor anyone. People are too stupid to know that people can see crap you post online and employees are almost certainly going to search you. I've spoken to hirers before and pretty much everyone looks at your Facebook. What if it just highlights my crap posting abilities on my resume to begin with? Seems like it would save everyone some time. The kid, early 20s, comes in for a job. Seems normal enough. Google him and he was wanted in another state for stabbing a St. Bernard to death. F that guy. Had a guy apply for an entry-level post with us recently. His CV was okay, so we offered him an interview. Social media seems okay too. He never turned up for the interview. A couple of weeks later, there was a story about him in the local paper. Turned out that he was living at the local boarding house and was on the kitchen one morning, totally wasted, wearing nothing but a pair of socks. When a couple of women who also lived there tried to escort him back to his room, he got violent and assaulted them. Given the date stated in the paper, he didn't turn up because he'd been in jail at the time of the interview. His resume has now added to the Do Not Touch with 10-foot barge pole section in our filing cabinet. His resume has now been added to the Do Not Touch with a 10-foot barge pole section in our filing cabinet. I'm envisioning watching our entire office try to open the cabinet and insert his paper with 11-foot barge poles, and as no one is allowed to touch anything in there and no one wants you to take a chance. There are bells attached to the drawer, so if anybody tries to access it, the secretary comes running with an 11-foot pole and smacks the offender on the hands and closes the drawer, all while hissing menacingly. Okay, I've got a good one. We hired a new entry-level graphic designer. Let's call him Will. He had talent and a decent portfolio, but there were some strange things right from the beginning. For example, he would always come in wearing expensive suits, despite our being a jeans and t-shirt office, and his having a very low-paid position. We didn't care much about that. No clue how he affords the wardrobe, but that's none of our business. He's a designer. I guess that's how he looked. He wanted to look nice. The weirdest thing was that he adamantly refused to accept direct deposits for his paycheck. He wanted a physical check every other week. Strange, but okay. Designers are eccentric sometimes. So one evening we're all working really late on a project together. We got some bottles of wine, some pizzas, etc. It's miserably long hours, but we're a good team and having a good time. All of a sudden, Will looks up on his computer and fudging runs as fast as he can out of the door. Not a word to any of us, he just dashes out. We all look at each other, try and call him, etc., with no answer. We finish up the project and go home still wondering what happened. The next day, Will doesn't come to work. Next day, he also doesn't come either. Next day, Will doesn't come into work. He doesn't come in the next day either. We try calling his emergency contact, but doesn't get any response either. So we Google it and we see the FBI press release. Turns out he was arrested about 500 miles from our office a few hours after he ran out. I guess he got a tip that the FBI was onto him and he decided to run for it. Turns out he had been defrauding payroll companies for years, in the tune of about $1 million. That's why he didn't want direct deposit for his paycheck. What he didn't know was that we processed our physical checks through the same payroll company as our direct deposit, and they reported his new address to the FBI. Oops. Why are these embezzlers still working? If I had $1 million, I would be gone. At least living comfortably in a non-extradition country, right? $1 million isn't what you think it is. You can pay yourself $50,000 for 20 years. So if you embezzled it before you're 30, you're broke, before retirement, and you have no work history. If you can get a reliable annual return of 5%, you can make that $50,000 without drawing down the capital. But that money needs to be fully laundered to get into the market, then back out as you get your returns. Once market crashes, you will be needing to withdraw more than your expected $50,000, so your expected future returns will be less. If you're willing to live on $25,000, don't make any initial purchases you can get in your first year's return. Make money management a full-time job, then you can tie with some comfort. $1 million 30 years ago, when being a millionaire meant never working again, that was one thing. Now, 10 million is the number you're looking for. Ain't it a bitch? I was hiring for our late night shifts ending at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and she was willing to work anything and looking for about 25 hours per week. That was absolutely what the company was looking for. She had mentioned that she was grieving for her little boy who passed away 2 weeks ago and needed to do something to occupy her time. She finished her one day of training and stopped showing up. Later in the week, she sent me an email saying that she wasn't ready to come back to work, and she thought, which was understandable. My assistant manager and I decided to look her up to find out she had multiple GoFundMe pages set up for her sob story with different accounts of time that her child had been dead for. Her Facebook was full of selfies and party photos. She ended up asking for a job months later and was shot down pretty quick. We had a near miss. One senior hire. We were talking about him and how something seemed a little off when we Googled him. It was like he didn't exist at all, and all the super positive tidbits of information that was always a bit too much of a stretch to be completely believable. I mean, 1 or 2 people saying the best thing on earth is one thing, but this was all he got with these sporadic, hyper-manic observations. One of the junior members on the team pipes up at this point. She still overheard what we're talking about. Turns out she's worked the last 2 places he's worked, and he's like a locust. He's extremely good at his job, but an absolutely nightmare in all other ways. Sexual harassment, bullying, turning up wasted. He has a really nice skill set. There are always more roles than people to fill, so hops along. Bullies everyone out of their role in his team. Brings it onto us to the point where almost anyone normal outrageous because the atmosphere is so toxic. Then when HR try and step in, he hits them with a constructive dismissal case and draws, lowers in, and there's no paper trail. She said he'd done that at her last job and the one before. It's one of those things that once you know, you start to notice stuff. So at events when nobody mentioned this guy's name, half of the table would just give each other a look and the others would have no idea. It's not quite an open secret, but it's definitely on a grapevine, anecdotally if not formally. Glad we dodged that bullet. Please tell me that junior member got a little something for saving your asses. An Adigal probably didn't get a raise that year. Your joke is too true to be funny. I share my dad's name. So when you Google my name, you pull up his exploits. Stuff like being arrested for having 7 semi-trucks worth of weed in his driveway. Thanks, Dad. Know a guy who couldn't get hired for anything. Eventually found out that he shared his name with a local registered child molester. He has since changed his name and has gotten many meaningful employment. I know a guy who had the exact rare name as a guy who killed someone in a way that got a lot of media attention. Luckily it didn't stop him from getting employment, but he did get a ton of crap mail on Facebook threatening to find him and kill him. Worst I've had is messages about people pissed off at me for being late to shoot someone's wedding in a different state. That's when I learned there was another wedding photographer with my name out there, and he was crap. I was interviewing a chef for my business. The interview went great and he had an excellent resume. Worked at some of the top restaurants in the world, 3 Michelin star type places. Even did a short cooking test with some spare ribs and they were incredible. There was some stiff competition though, so we eventually decided to look at everyone's Facebook profiles. One of his old profile pic was him at Mardi Gras parade dressed as Pikachu with a big dildo strapped on. He got the job.